This time on the BK, we're one-on-one with a bloke whose nickname originated in Melbourne's Chinatown, with a never say die attitude to the rise of community success that has seen him play a role and a tune with a plenty, and his merry clan of Greenroom buddies. G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the brand Konnect. I'm at Jai, and this week on the BK we're catching up with a man from Manly who's run more sporting bodies than most people have physical bodies. Mr. Dimmy Adam Hennessey, how are you, mate?
Very well, thanks, Matt. Pretty busy, but going well.
Mate, with a nickname like Dimmy, where does that actually stem from?
It stemmed from dim sims. I used to eat dim sims after school.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I was pretty poor, and it started with dim sim, and then it went down to Dimmy. And due to two guys really who were professional surfers, one was Shane Herring, and the other one was Justin Cook, a good mate of ours. I couldn't get rid of it. The more I tried, the more people call me it. So now actually people think my real name is Dimmy or Dimitri, which is pretty funny.
I could probably see you as a Dimitri, honestly. You know, you fit the bill of a little Italian artist, you know, sorry to be little. I mean, that was not judging you, but, you know, you're pretty small in size. Mate, I thought that was always the reason being because you were short like a dim sim.
No, unfortunately it wasn't. And it's like anything, the more you want something to go away, the more it stays with you. So eventually I had to embrace it and just go, okay. But it's pretty amazing when I meet people around the, you know, in the surf industry from around the world, and they say, oh my God, I didn't know your name was Adam.
Well, mate, talking about the surf industry, you know, you kicked off by mentioning two legends of the surf, you know, Shane Herring and Justin Cook. Justin was one of the guys from Manly who came out, you know, in a blaze after Barton Lynch. But the Nth Steyne area, you've dedicated some 24 years, I believe, to Nth Steyne Boardriders, which is almost a lifetime for some. Some people don't even get to live that long. Mate, what's it been like to kick off Nth Steyne Boardriders? Who'd you do it with, and where's the club at the moment?
Well, you know, originally I was from Manly Vale as a youngster. And
we won't hold that against you.
Yeah, that's fine. And two idols of mine were a couple of guys called Durwood and Big Charlie, which are the Charlesworth brothers. And growing up, they had a family connection with me. And basically, I grew up really wanting to be a part of that scene. And when I got the opportunity, I took it with both hands. And it basically not only been my passion, everything in my life. I sort of connect to Nth Steyne Boardriders. I've been lucky enough to have the community allow me to, you know, help grow and develop people in our community, and I love it, and it probably saved my life many, many times.
What was the crop of surfers that started to sort of come down to the club and fill out that registration form, and who was, I suppose, the club champion end of that first year?
It was pretty weird that first year, it sort of exploded. A couple of good friends of yours, Bryce Warburton and Andrew Dalton, helped start the club.
Founding members?
Yeah, founding members, and two guys who helped, you know, that first year or first couple of years have been involved in the club. And from the outset, there was a real need. I felt that, you know, for me, it was more about keeping the flame going, that the Charlesworths had actually, you know, put in place a couple of years earlier. But there was a real need for a second club on the beach, because QBC is probably one of the most strongest clubs in Australia when it comes to history and stats, and they're an amazing club. And there's a disconnect between us and them, definitely. And people do laugh and go, you know, why isn't there just one club in Manly? Because you've got so many good surfers, but there is a total different atmosphere. There's a total different personality of each club. And I'm sure they would never want to join with us, as we would never want to join with them, but we both respect each other. And to be honest, I actually think that it has helped nurture the development of a lot of the surfers, because there's been such, you know, a great kind of rivalry between the two clubs, and a very important rivalry.
If anyone doesn't know what QBC is, just to elaborate on what Adam just said, QBC is Queenscliff Boardriders Club.
Yep.
Queenscliff is depicted by Nth Steyne Surf Club, and it actually, you get a postcode change when you go from Nth Steyne to Queenscliff. You know, it goes from 2095 to 2096.
Yep.
And you've sort of jumped from running Boardriders clubs to getting involved in the local rugby league community as well through Manly Cove?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a life member of Manly Cove. Very proud of that. I spent 20 years coaching at that club, and the great thing about Manly Cove is that it was a very multicultural club. In fact, I was one of the only Aussies at the club. A lot of Kiwis and Pacific Islander guys, but very loyal people. And I had the pleasure of because I wouldn't consider myself a good coach. We had a lot of success at Cove, and it was based on the quality of players that we had. And, in those 20 years, it was quite weird that I only coached basically 2 junior sides in 20 years. So I had a long, long association with each side. The second side I had, the one with guys like William Hopewadi, John Valentino, we had so many good players come out of that side that went into grade. Will went on to bigger and better things. His brother Jamil now playing for the Broncos. He was very young, but he used to play up for us as well. But it was just about the bond that we built. We had a lot of success based on the fact we had really good players. We made every grand final from under 7s right through to 19s, and we only lost about 5 or 6 of them, and we had some good rivalries. But more than that, it just felt like a family to me. And when I think back, surfing is my life and a passion of mine, but rugby league has definitely given me some of the happiest days of my life, because watching those guys develop as people and athletes was amazing to watch. So I'm pretty blessed that not only I got to coach there, but I became a life member. Very proud of that.
And you also worked with John post his Manly days, didn't you?
100%. He was, when I went to A grade, I did 2 years in A grade. John, I made it my mission to have John as my captain of that side. And there was a reason for that, because a lot of the younger guys had come through that system with his son, and they had a lot of respect for John. I mean, people don't see the good that Hop does. Like, I did an interview with Steve Menzies about this, and I said, I only take people off face value. That's all you can do. And the one thing I love about John during the course of his life, like, he's made some errors. Everyone has. We all make mistakes, but he always took ownership of them. And people didn't see that really good heart that John has. They just see the bad stuff, not the good. And over the course of 20 years at Manly Cove, you could literally pull out, hundreds of kids who have come through, who have learnt something off Hop. He gives so much time to developing younger guys. And it's not like the analogy with Hop that I love is that he not only encourages, it's not all about winning with him. It's just competing and doing the best you can. And he was one of my biggest supports coming through. So when the opportunity came to coach A grade, I brought Hop in, and it was pretty funny because he used to have a saying, do as I say, not as I do. And that
makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. But he was a real, protector of those younger guys who are coming into A grade. And he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I have so much respect for that family. I'm very, very close to William, and I'm very proud of Jamil. Jamil had a really tough couple of years where he went to jail, but he did wrong and he paid the penalty. And now he's playing NRL, and hats off to him. He's a great guy. As I said, people make mistakes, and you've got to allow for that. And as long as you can learn from those mistakes, and that's what I always say about John, that he always took ownership of everything he ever did. He was such a big part of that club. Many people, have gone away and learned things off John, and people just wanted to see the bad, not the good.
Accountability is certainly a very important asset to have, or tool to have in your toolbox. Like, a lot of people don't find the accountability for what the actions that they take in life, and I'd say they get a little bit down on the situation and not want to rise through ownership. Sounds like Hoppo did, mate. From the softball of the footy field to the hard ball of the cricket pitch, that's another sport that you decided you'd throw the old dim sim into, mate. How was that? And what were you doing there at Manly Manly Cricket?
I'm probably the world's worst cricketer of all time, but I had a really solid association with a couple of guys at Manly, the Bradstreets, Sean, who coaches still now. He coaches at the Thunder, I think, and big part of the Manly setup. He was the captain at the time, and a young guy who I'd consider one of my best mates, Tim Cruikshank, who played state, one of the most prolific run scorers in grade history. I had a really close friendship with them guys, and basically how it transpired was I used to just go and hang out with the boys, and then I started doing their fitness drills and motivational stuff. And like I said, I'm not a cricketer. I was just there as support staff, but I got had some really good times with those guys. I just love helping others. I mean, it's what I do. It's how I operate at my peak. I'm not happy unless I'm trying to develop and help other people, and that's why, over the course of the years, I've got involved in multiple sports. Rugby League is my passion. It's always been my drive. And as I said, I got lucky, and I'm proud of that. The surfing, for me, it's a real spiritual thing. And anyone else I can help as an individual, I've always tried to do that.
Mate, that's an incredible attitude to have to life, because as we all both know, I mean, you and I and everyone sitting at home there, is life is a one-shot equation. There ain't no two goes in this body. So to actually give back to community is a huge thing. Talking about the give back, mate, you must have been one hell of an English student at school, because rumour has it, and I've seen it, is that you actually had your own column in the Manly Daily. How did that come about? And were you the ace English student that everyone says that you were?
No, I wasn't. I left school in year 9. I was basically told to go get an apprenticeship. I was a really poor student. I was going through a very turbulent time in my life where, my upbringing was pretty tough. I was a bit of a lunatic as a young guy, to be honest, and trying to find my way. So I was never good at school. The way the actual Manly Daily thing came out was that I felt at the time when I started Nth Steyne Boardriders that not enough focus from the local paper was actually going towards, one of the most prolific regions worldwide when it came to quality of surfer, world-class surfers. So I basically had a discussion with a guy called Adam Lucius, and I said, Lush, this is crap. Like, there's Rugby League gets 4 pages and soccer gets 2 pages and whatever. I said, we're getting nothing. And at the time, Narrabeen had 4 or 5 guys on the world tour alone at that time in 2000. So he basically just turned around and said, if you're that good, write it yourself. And I did. I started writing it in a cafe. I didn't have a computer. Literally, I was the most useless writer.
Did you have a dictionary at hand?
No,
and how were you
spell check.
Yeah, right.
So I started writing for the Daily in 2000. I wrote for 16 years. And in that time, I was able to pick up other, publications like Japanese Surfing World and Surfing World here. And I wrote a lot. And I just found a little corner where, writing surfing actually suited what was coming out of my brain. I don't think it would have transferred into any other sport, but I definitely believe that as a growth, I got better and better at writing surfing because, 1, I had the passion for it, and 2, I had the drive for it. But more than that, I understood the logistics of what I was trying to explain. And that's how the writing came about. No, not a genius. In fact, I'm lucky to spell my own name at times. It was just part of the puzzle that became my life.
You got a promotions company, AH Promotions.
Yep.
That must have been a byproduct of all this publicity work you were doing. How was it to go from that grassroots surfing events, such as the Nth Steyne Boardriders, to then punch into, say, bigger events?
I did a lot of pro juniors. I did a lot of QSs, minor QSs. I helped run Lane's World Tour event. So I basically developed my skill set through Nth Steyne Boardriders. Everything I have in my life I owe to that club and to the people in that club. So I had a really good work focus on organising things, and people actually noticed it. Like, companies would come to me and say, would you like to come and help at an event? And in the end, I was like, you know what? I reckon I could run these events as good as anyone. Like, I remember doing the Quicksilver Air Show final at Manly, and I ran that event for Quickie, and was at Nth Steyne. And I just remember thinking, maybe I should be putting my focus into doing my own events. So I started AH Promotions, and the first event I ever did, which became one of the biggest junior events in the world. And I'll say it right now, it definitely was. When you look at the calibre of guys who won the Aloha Hornet, incredible. Guys like Wilco, Geordie Smith won it twice, Jeremy Flores, who I've got really strong relationships with, guys like Julian Wilson, Owen Wright, Tyler Wright, like about 10 junior world champs came through that event.
So did you have the vision to become an event director?
No, not until about, between 2002, 2008. There was so many events and there was so much money out there. the way I tried to run my business was that I tried to give really good value for, the sponsorship money and what they were trying to achieve. So we had really good success, and I had a really good staff, guys like Phil Courtney and guys who were just amazing at their jobs within the actual surf industry. And like I said, I'm proud of the fact that the company ran probably about 50 or 60 events over the course of that time. And it only really stopped when the GFC came in and the money dried up. And on the flip side of that as well was when social media came in, the focus of companies about where they were actually planting their money totally changed. So I remember 2007, we had 8, 9, maybe even 10 events. It was crazy how big it was. I had a really solid foundation with a guy called Hamish Nelson, who without him, my company was never going to be successful because he basically oversaw the whole structure of what we did in an event. So without Hamish, AH Promotions would never be successful. So we had all these events. And then the next year, I remember thinking, wow, we're gone from that amount of events to about 2 or 3. And what hit me most was I remember Lane Beachley, we helped run Lane's event because she was actually still competing, and myself, Matt Wilson, and Richie Porter, who was basically the head judge of ASP, we helped Lane run that event. And when she started to struggle for sponsorship dollars, I was thinking, if she isn't getting money and she's an absolute media queen.
Magnet.
You know what I mean? Like the passion she had for that event was incredible, and it was so sad to see it go. I thought, if that event doesn't go ahead, we are all struggling.
Well, put 12 years on that now, and it sounds like that was around the 08 time.
Yep.
We're sitting here in 2020, and obviously we're now faced with possibly the heaviest financial situation on the planet. Those surfers that you mentioned before, bar Lane, and obviously Wilco's not on the tour now, but a lot of those surfers have put their hat in the ring and continued the pathway, and they've gone through to, runner-up in the Worlds and done amazing things. Surfing's in probably its own restructure or dire straight moment at the moment. I mean, the tide's risen, and it's gone out. Where do you see, the next sort of wave of surfing and surfing dollars actually coming from? How does it go forward from here?
I think WSL, who took over from ASP, I work under guys like Andrew Stark and Will Hayden Smith and guys like that, and I do a lot of commentary for our region. Starkey is a very astute business guy, so he's going to really be able to push what we need to do in this country. But worldwide, I think WSL have done a great job, and they've developed a product now that I think will hold us through for the next 10 to 20 years. But the problem is, where do you generate sponsorship these days? Because
there's no clothing company that can.
Yeah, no one's. Surf
Stitch is the biggest cash turn, isn't it, in Australia in surfing?
Not even that really makes a lot of money. So these days I feel that WSL would push more towards government funding than your traditional, surf brands. You have to go outside the bubble. Like they've done some really good things. They brought in Corona, they brought in Jeep.
The virus or the drink?
No, the drink.
Oh, the beer.
The beer. So,
So they didn't start the virus?
No, they definitely didn't start the virus. I mean, but, they've put things in place where it's just not surf-based because companies have been losing money for a long time. And, and like you said, with this change in financial situation worldwide, what happens to the wages of those guys like the Geordies and people like that?
Well, they're different to, tennis players. They're not on that retainer, are they,
no.
per se? So there's no, like you're on the tour, you get a retainer, you get to turn up.
I will tell you one thing, buddy. You could lose every heat on the CT for a guy and walk away with 165,000, basically Australian dollars, you know what I mean? So it's good cash. It's not like back in the day when BL and guys like Justin and those guys come through where that kind of cash wasn't there. They do get paid well from WSL, and but it'll be interesting because sooner or later the money might dry up, and where does the sport go? You just don't know, and you hope for the next generation because, I mean, from my standpoint, we've got a really solid group of young guys coming through our club and on the northern beaches and Australia-wide, we need those next generation to have something to point their careers to.
Mate, the one thing that I've noticed with surfing, I spent some time behind the lens and in the industry, and on that scale, I did see the first wave of Brazilians come through.
Yeah.
That, essentially became the Brazilian Storm, or with Adriano taking the flag off Patarats, and, Neko was probably the guys before that. Those guys have done some incredible things, but they don't come from the northern beaches. I'm not going to, sort of taint where we live, but I've been to the favela. I spent time in Pablo Paulino, the 2 times world junior champion, in his favela. Pablo, legend, Irmão. Você muito legal, surfista. Campeonato do Mundo 2 vezes. Abraço, Irmão. Muito obrigado. Those guys are actually hardened by the way that they have to live. Do you think Australia has any chance at maybe even capturing those guys? You got to look at essentially what Italo's doing on the socials. I mean, that stuff is totally mind-blowing.
Look, I think it comes in waves. I honestly do. I've been asked this question a couple of times regarding, the Brazilian Storm. Yeah, but it wasn't always like that. Like when you think back to, say, 2008, you had guys like Mick. Even Bede was second in the world. Joel and TB were at their peak, but it's just a period of time right now where these guys are excelling. And it doesn't mean that our region, and I'm talking about it doesn't mean the states either, won't come through with a series of surfers, because, yeah, you've got Italo, you've got Gabby, and you've got Toledo. But come on, when you think of the states, you've got Chloe, you've got Kanoa, and you've got John. There is a total abundance of quality guys at the moment who can win world titles. It's just, I feel like the Brazilians have that fast twitch kind of surfing that is
really. Do you
think
it's passion as well? Like
100%.
Yeah.
Like I remember talking to Adriana one day about, we had some dramas with some guys at Manly who I felt like were just being
disrespectful.
Yeah, in the water. And I said, because all the guys on tour, like guys like Jaddy, Andre, and Adriana, they're just great people, easy to talk to, great guys. I haven't had a lot to do with Gabby or Italo or Philippe, because they sort of have their entourages. But those other guys, just amazing characters, good guys to hang with. And I said, what's the deal? And he said because realistically, there's no middle ground. You're either rich or you're poor. And those sort of wealthier crew can come over here and hang out and stuff like that. And he said, and the guys who aren't have to fight. And maybe, that's what you're saying, that they've had to fight, and because you've been there. But it doesn't mean that our guys aren't as driven or as passionate as them.
Well, I'd like to see, something that's just happened now, such as the coronavirus, and guys like Matty Banting that are just super talented. I listened to the Hennessey files, and I really enjoyed listening to Matt Banting. Matty doing an amazing job in the water and in your own media. Like there's no sponsor.
What about his clips?
Oh, he's unbelievable.
They're as good as Italo's.
Yeah,
in my eyes, I know what you're saying about Italo.
He's really, really good. Like Matty Banting, don't get me wrong, but Italo's got that support that's going to enable him. Like Matty's, obviously got Lenny. Lenny's doing an amazing job.
Yep.
And Matt's doing an amazing job with his own media. I mean, to have his dad doing his video, and for what I heard in the Hennessey files, the way he speaks is articulate and super intelligent. And he's no knucklehead, that's for sure. But when you've got that team around you, and that backing, that's where the pressure's off. But what without sort of comparing apples to apples or surfer against surfer, to the point that I was sort of drilling down on there, I'd really love to see our guys from Australia come out of this corona thing, where guys like Matty Banting that were leading the QS, that essentially down their financial dollars, putting it all themselves, come out and actually really shake the world up next year. Because they don't have much. We've got great waves here. We've got an amazing, abundant country. It'd be amazing to see our Australian surfers come on there and go, let's have a look at how everyone's surfing. Yeah,
I truly believe there will be a next wave for us. The junior development systems that Surfing Australia have got through the HPC and B doing a great job, and they've got some really good. There's some great coaches in the world, and some great Aussie coaches. I just think that we just need to bide our time. continue to develop those younger guys and give them opportunities. And I think
they've got to work hard too, right?
Yeah, I think the changes with the WSL format, they're going to bring in this change where they're going to focus on regions when it comes to QSs, right? That is a major, major boost for Australia because a lot of these kids now just can't afford to travel.
So explain that a little bit further. You can surf here in Australia and qualify for the World Tour without doing too much overseas travel.
What they're going to do, they're going to bring, WSL will actually bring like a statement out or, the logistics of it. But they spoke earlier in the year about changing up the way they actually run the actual World Tour. And they're going to have a challenge. First of all, they were talking about having a challenger system on the same year. So a surfer could literally fall out of the World Tour.
Like Dingo did.
Yeah, and then requalify the same year without having to wait that full season to get back on tour. So, let's just say for argument's sake, you do the CTs in the first 6 months of the year.
Championship tour.
Yeah, and then you do the Challenger at the second half of the year. I don't know exactly how they're going to work it, but from me reading in literature, I feel like that's what they're talking about. So, and then guys can re-qualify towards the back end of the year. Now,
sort of like and then with the world champion at the end.
It'll be, yeah, but there'll be two different kind of tours to give everyone the opportunities. Now, the region thing
is that like tennis in some way? Or is that what Bobby was going on with back in the day?
No, that was something totally different. You got to remember that was because of the fact that I think after 5 or 6 events, they brought in guys from the QS and they offloaded guys from the CT. And Bobby Martinez, famously, I was actually there in New York, went out of his mind about it and said, this
rightfully, though, in many ways.
100%. Because
totally disappointed in the sport that he'd worked hard as a grommet there doing the NSSAs to get to that level.
I'll tell you what disappointed me most about that format was the fact that you had guys who had dedicated their whole life to trying to qualify for the CT, and everyone knows how hard it is being a rookie, and only had the opportunity to surf a certain amount of events under pressure, knowing that if they didn't make the cut, they were gone. So their dreams were gone, no pipe, no nothing. And so a lot of people didn't like that format. I like the new format where, guys can do their full season and then go and try to re-qualify. And talking about the regional stuff, they're talking about doing more bigger events in the regions to give those guys who aren't financially viable the opportunity to actually compete without having to spend, because QS is like $50,000 to do a QS season. And unless you've got...
You don't go around the world free, do you?
No, unless you've got massive financial backing, it is hard work.
Mate, the essence of international travel and you talking about domestic series and having a new format of surfing, I think it sounds really promising. Surfing needs a shake-up. Everything needs a shake-up in certain times for their growth to occur. Mate, shake-up in anything, we're going to talk about, say, artificial waves. Yeah. How do you see that in a competition format? When you've got a tour that starts at Snapper Rocks and finishes a pipeline, and then you've got in between Lemoore and potentially another wave, whether it is, the wave up there in Yeppoon, let's say you've got, the Occy BL wave up there. How do you see the next sort of competition series going in this indoor or outdoor lake arena situation?
From my point of view, and this is only my opinion, I don't like it. The thing that makes our sport unique is there's no two waves the same. So, and the playing field is very, very different when it comes to the oceans. Nature supplies you the waves. I just find it, there is definitely a niche for the wave pools. I mean, I've been down to Urban in Melbourne. It's unbelievable. And for me, it would be a great training facility for the younger guys. We take a lot of our young guys from Nth Steyne down there. So it's a great training tool, but as a competitive tool, I don't like it. I love Kelly's wave, but if you ask me from a fan standpoint, do I like it as an event? No. I'd rather see somewhere like Cloudbreak, Trestles, whatever, right, be on the tour rather than Kelly's wave pool. And I just feel like if you're going to do a wave pool kind of event, why not have a wave pool kind of championship?
I know my stepdad, who's spent a lot of time in the cricket arena, you know, and you know, Test cricket it's watching grass grow. When he watches surfing, and he's not a surfer, but he grew up at Manly and he spent a lot of time in and around the beach and, you know, watching different sports, and he was involved in AFL for a long time as well. Loves his rugby league. He sometimes thinks that watching a live event with the ocean, there's a lot of talk, a lot of feel in the commentary without a lot of action. Do you think that's why the wave pools are potentially something that could be interesting?
Yes and no. I mean, that has always been a bugbear of people who aren't, you know, totally addicted to surfing, where they go, oh, I'm watching a heat and, you know, for 10 minutes of that heat, nothing's happening. But if you're a surf fan, there is always something happening. People are trying to sell waves to each other. There's always little nuances that happen in and around professional surfing. But I just feel like the wave pool, if I put a coach's hat on, right, say let's talk about Kelly's wave pool. If I put a coach's hat on, you could literally sit down with your athlete and work out exactly what turn you're going to do on what part of that wave and how you're going to maximise your scoring potential in that situation. For me, that takes out the beauty of what makes our sport so special. And that is just that, you know, that spark and what's in front of you got to attack kind of thing. So that's what I don't like about it. I don't like the fact that you can analyse and you can actually work out a strategy based on the wave format, because it breaks the same way.
It doesn't have that critical component to it that's going to sort of send you over the ledge because the tide's changed.
Yeah, and people can argue the point, like they'll go, well, Chopes is the same wave. Well, it's not. It breaks over the reef the same, but there's no two waves at Chopes really the same. And the power that those waves possessed and you know, the skill set to be able to basically throw yourself over that ledge. Incredible courage from anyone who actually tries that. So for me, I'm a traditionalist. Yeah, I can see the value of wave pools, and as a surfer and a surf fan, I love actually going there. But for me, it just takes out the beauty and the spark of what makes us.
You mentioned the word coaching. You sat by and helped out, you know, essentially a couple of the Manly guys that, you know, needed that, I suppose, that spark or that little bit of a kick in the, you know, the backside to say, hey guys, you got something here, you know, and don't let your life pass before your eyes and miss it. How important for you was it to see those young kids at Nth Steyne, the Dayyan Neves, the Kai Ottons, take that leap of faith and make the world tour?
Yeah, look, I'm proud of both them guys, but I'm also proud of guys like Bo Mitchell. He won a World Junior Champ, and he was basically one heat away from making the tour. For me, the journey is more about the effort and the commitment you put into your sport rather than the success or lack of it, right? So Dayyan and Kai, yeah, they fulfilled their dreams, but I'm as proud as Bo as I am of those two, because the fact that he gave it 110%, I know what he's like as an individual, as a person. So like when he walks away from the sport, he should be proud of what he achieved, because the fact that, you know, I always say if you give it 110%, and this analogy I put to Dayyan years ago before he qualified, I said, look, if you give it 110% and you can look yourself in the eye in the mirror and go, you know what, I gave it everything I had, you're the winner. You win. You don't lose, you win. So it didn't happen for Bo. But back to Dayyan and Kai, I got lucky with both them too. I'd consider them, you know, part of my family. Dayyan is probably the person in my life, other than Suzanne, who I'm closest to. You know what I mean? He's family to me. And I'm really proud of what he did based on where he was in his career at the time. We sat down and had a chat after Hawaii 1 year. He was about 100th in the world. And I just sort of let rip at him, and I was honest with him in my appraisal of what he's doing, because I could see just how much talent he had. But he was so cooked by the QS, I could literally see he'd go, oh, I'm just over these crap waves, and, you know, that's how the QS grind is. And for him, he had the ability, but he needed someone to push him. So I said to him, okay, let's go to work. I'll train you. Training and coaching is a little bit different, okay, because, I mean, biomechanically, both them guys are 20 times better than the surfer I'll ever be. But getting the best out of athletes, and I find this over all different kind of sports that I've been involved with, it's more about your mental approach of getting the best out of an individual. So Dayyan trained hard, put his head down, ass up, and just went for broke. And in that year, he went from 100th in the world to 6th. He basically qualified halfway through the year. And literally, like, it had nothing to do with me. I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning to help him. But it wasn't me doing the hard yards on the road. It wasn't me eating right. It wasn't me, when the waves are good, going down to Manly Corner. And it would be pumping the curly, and Dayyan would go, you know what, we're going to surf 1 to 2 foot Manly Corner, and I'm going to learn how to, beat the QS. Because there's a formula. He said, I'm just not surfing. I'm expecting to surf good waves all the time. That's not happening. So when Dayyan qualified...
Well, there isn't those good waves in those large capital areas, is there? Where they're going to run a publicity event, really, a qualifier.
So we got a lot of coverage out of the fact that Dayyan qualified. But realistically, I don't take too much out of it. I had too much to do with it. I'm, as his mate and as his trainer and his so-called coach, I'm proud of what he did, because we looked at each other and said, okay, if we give this everything we've got and it doesn't work, well, he said, at least I've given it a go. And that's what
you can do.
That's what I'm proud of. Kai, on the other hand, I lived with Kai when he first came to Sydney, and underneath the facade of it, that smiling face, he's a driven individual. And even though he wasn't the most talented, he became one of the most prolific guys on the tour. He had 10 years on the world tour. And I remember him coming back from a QS.
That's a hell of a passage, isn't it, man?
That's in the top 5% of all-time stats when it comes to guys on the tour. And I remember the thing that Kai lacked was that power, because he literally developed late. He didn't reach, his development stage till he was about 8 or 19. So he was a little bit behind the 8 ball. And I remember him coming back from Europe one year, and I went over to Curly to watch Dayyan, him and Bemi surf. And he just tagged off on his backhand. And I remember walking away in my mind saying to myself, holy crap. It was like he just fully reached puberty and just somehow just amassed his power. And I went, he'll qualify. And eventually he did, the same year as Dayyan. And the thing I love about Kai's career was that he just fought for everything. Dayyan's a different personality than Kai. Dayyan was happy with what he achieved, and he should be, because he made the world tour, and that's what he wanted to do. Kai wasn't happy with just doing that. In fact, 10 years on the tour, he won Portugal. That year, he went on a complete roll. I got to travel with him to Trestles and a couple of other events, and he just had a real spark. Some people get it, some people don't. But at the end of the day, those guys that I helped develop at Nth Steyne, really, I was just there as an extra set of eyes, an extra set of ears to talk to. And Dayyan said to me something once that really made me feel good. He said, I just needed someone to push me.
Someone to be in their corner.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll always be proud of that. And now, I look now compared to that era compared to now, we are now in an era at Manly and at Nth Steyne where we have just an exceptional amount of talent coming through our ranks. The guys like Saxon Reba, Axel Carrotta, Fletch Kelleher, George Pitter. There's endless amounts of guys who are coming through who are just blowing up and ripping.
Yeah, that's got to be feeling good then, all that 24 years later. The hard work pays off, right? Yeah,
but there's a lot of people in our club who have made that happen. Guys like Kev Reba and Wazza Randall, and people have made that happen. I'm just like, I'm just like the captain who steers the ship. It's not really got anything to do with me, but we're just going through a real growth at the moment. And from a club point of view, it's really important for us to continue to develop those guys, because we just don't have one or two. We've got a lot. And I'm proud of the fact that we went up and last year won Kira, and we've actually won it back-to-back. So we know that the club's in a great place, but it's not up to us. These guys are now between the ages of, say, 14 and 18. They need to do the work.
I mean, what was the thing that changed your life that made you...
Probably Nth Steyne Boardriders, to be honest. It gave me a real focus point. And, I met my wife, Suzanne, there and through footy, but Nth Steyne Boardriders gave me a real sense of belonging. And I never had that in my life. I came from a very... dysfunctional background where when I grew up, there was a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of violence in my life, and my mum basically brought me up. I had a real disconnect with my biological father, who has nothing to do with my life these days, And I basically needed something to turn it around. Luckily for me, I found that niche. But for these guys now at Nth Steyne, you know, they've got good families, they've got good backing, but again, you know, everyone goes through those adolescent years where they've got to be very, very careful. And the thing I say to all of them is, you guys have got decisions to make, not your parents. As individuals, you've got decisions to make. Either you want to make the sacrifice to do what you love, or you'll fail.
Well, the personal brand is so important because that sets you up for associations with product. Yep. It sets you up for association with companies. And if your personal brand falls off the radar, or people start doubting your ability to show up, blow up, be consistent, you know, that's when you're under scrutiny and people are actually going to walk away from, you know, even endorsing you in a personal manner.
100%. And they've got to be, you know, aware of their responsibilities. A lot of these guys are sponsored, and they know they've got a responsibility to those brands, because those brands are paying for them and you're wearing their gear. You need to be responsible for that. And I feel that not only just at Nth Steyne, but overall in general, there's such a strong point within the grassroots sector of surfing within Australia that these kids, you know, will have less time on their hands to get themselves in trouble if they're focused in on what they've got to do. And from what I see, Australia-wide, they are. It's just a really good place to be right now. There's a lot of events, there's a lot of travelling. So those things that really, when me and you grew up, Matt, that weren't really there, especially for someone like me, because I was never a competitive surfer. But these guys have got a real focus points, and I think that's important. And it's really important for us as leaders of the community and guys who run clubs to make sure that we have that right, because it's our responsibility.
Mate, it certainly is. I mean, talking about responsibility, you've had this passion, you know, with 4 Strings. How's the Greenroom?
They're an awesome bunch of guys, and I've been pretty blessed that for a very, very average bass player that I've got to play over a 25-year period. Basically, I picked up the bass guitar about a month after Nth Steyne started, so it's been in my life as something that I've loved. I've dedicated myself to. It's, for me, music is a great way to sort of drift out of what's going on in your life, and a great way to give you some spiritual sort of, spiritually it just lifts me, because I have suffered over the years. I've suffered with depression, and music has definitely brought me out of that. I've been lucky to play with some really good musos. Paul, who plays with us, great musician. Craig, who I met Nigel through you. He was in a band called Unleaded, and I was pretty stoked that at the back end of their career, I was able to play with Unleaded. It was a real dream of mine because I used to watch those guys just light it up, and they should have gone further in their careers. They got that unlucky. They were that talented.
Well, that's the luck of the string, isn't it? You know, I hate to say the luck of the string. That is a luck of the string, right? Because music, you know, I mean, you're either going to make it, you're neither not going to make it. It's like surfing, you know. Yeah. And it depends on that one conversation. Again, going back to the personal brand, because people might look at your personal brand and think, you know what, you don't fit in with our record company. And it might be because one band member, there might be one sore thumb in the band that just essentially waters down the opportunity, because that's when the actual product comes into it, the musical product, the actual who is the band, who's the faces, can they handle money, can they handle the tour? Talking about music, you know, you've obviously you love playing because you
love it.
Yeah.
I play like an hour a day. It's therapeutic, really, to be honest. So I try to play every day. As I said, been in the Greenroom, been in that band for 20 years. It was just a fun band we put together. We play down in the Bodie every now and again. I've played, got to play on some albums with other artists, and I got to learn a lot from them. One of the best guitarists in the world is a good mate of all of us, a guy called Nick Maybury, and shout out to Nick if he's listening over in LA. And his career has just developed into one of the most incredible careers of a guitarist anywhere in the world. He's sought after. I remember going down to Melbourne. It was pretty wacky. He toured with Good Charlotte. He plays with Juliette Lewis and the Licks, and plays with some of the most prolific musicians. He's played with Matt Solemn from Gunners, Brad Wilkes from Rage Against the Machine. You name it, he's played with it.
And he's a manly boy.
He's a manly. The funniest thing is with Nick that he'll come home and the first thing he wants to do is just get aboard and get in the ocean. I remember when we were in LA, we were at Trestles one year, the year that TV won. I was staying with him, and Nick came down to the contest, and he was like a kid in a candy shop. He just wanted to go out there and have a surf. Normalest guy you'll ever meet. And his story's, incredible. If you ever want to check out a guy, Nick Mabry, check him out online, because he is one of the leading guitarists. And to even play with him was a little bit outside my realm because he was that good.
Mate, Nick, the Kid Mabry, that was his nickname, right? The Kid.
100%.
Yeah, I remember being there in Hollywood, and I was out the night, with a bird in Hollywood. And, we cruise up to this bar, and, the musos are out the front, and she knew him because she was a rock and roll jewellery maker. She made jewellery that, sort of went really big. Adam Brand and all these. I don't know his name. But, the guy that actually was in Queen, the dude that replaced Freddie in Queen.
Adam Lambert.
Yeah. Adam Lambert was actually donning her stuff, and she was going, this guy's going to be huge, and da-da-da-da-da, and Adam and this other band's really cool, and my friends, and I go there, and this guy just looks at me and goes, Matt. I'm like, yeah. And I'm there hanging out with this bird, she's a really cool lady, kind of a bit of a celeb herself. And the next thing you know, he's going, it's a Kid. And I'm like, it's Nick. And I'm like, oh, man, how are you?
Totally different, isn't he, now?
Hey, like he was ripping. And, the band obviously went up there and played to, a crowded house and then sort of blew people away. At this time of the show, I'd like to actually do a shout out. Mate, who would you like to throw a shout out to?
Just a couple of people, if I could. A good mate of mine, Gary Douglas, who I grew up with in Manly. He's one of my longest mates. I'd love to big shout out to him and his family, and also everyone from Nth Steyne Boardriders who's helped, make me develop into the human that I am today. I've been pretty blessed from, everyone helping me out over the last 23 years. I can be difficult at times, and I do appreciate it. And especially a young lady who's been doing it a little bit tough lately, Hunter Kelleher. She's coming back from an injury, but she's a great young person, and I'm sure that once she gets over, her operation, she'll be fine. And massive shout out to you, Hunter. Get well.
That's an incredible thing to do, to recognise people that are going through, the highs and lows in life. This week, my shout out's going to go to Richard Rhodes at Kelly's Office Furniture. Richard supplied us these beautiful extensions to the BK chairs. We sort of copying a bit of flack, and I knew I had Adam coming on the show this week, and he's pretty short, so I thought I'd just make sure.
You need some stilts.
Yeah, get the stilts out. But if you're ever in the need for a little bit of furniture of the office variety and or want to use something in the home, go see the guys and girls there at Kelly Furniture. Ads, mate, not everything is ups and downs. You mentioned little Hunter who's going through her adversity. You've had not just this amazing magic carpet rides. You told me, you mentioned the word depression.
Yep.
How hard has it been to deal with a black dog? And essentially, you had a bit of a near-death experience a couple of years ago. You also lost some of the closest people in your life. Some of your dearest friends. Mate, how's that all going these days?
Look, I'll be honest, I'm not ashamed of it. I used to be a little bit weird with it, but I've definitely suffered from depression in my life. Caused, a lot of things from my childhood, which is a normal thing. A lot of people get that kind of thing, and you try to push it deep, and that's not a very positive thing to do. In fact, it's a real dangerous thing to do. So if you do have issues, you need to sort them out. When I was 18, I lost my best mate, who was the same age, Dave Hale, and even though he's not here anymore, he taught me some very, very valuable life lessons that had he not, I would not be here today. So, there's not a day that goes by that I don't really think about Dave. He was, my true friend, someone that I trusted with my life.
We all loved him.
Yeah.
There's these things that
I was blessed.
There's these things I always go on about on the show, the trust, know and like factor.
Yep.
And you got to trust someone, you got to know the circumstance or know them, and you got to like the environment. Dave made you feel at ease.
100%. Look, he came in my life when I really needed someone to tell me how I was, to tell me to grow up and be a man and take responsibility for your own life. He did it in his own little weird way, but eventually I got what he sort of drilled into me. And, And over the course of the time, you know, as I said, like I had a really challenging childhood, but I know that I'm gonna have to live with stuff from my childhood for the rest of my life. But I've tried to make sure that, you know, it hasn't defined who I am, because you can either go one way or the other. There was a point where I went, okay, you can be a victim of what happened to you as a child, or you can man up and try to give people 110% of yourself to make better people out of other people. You know what I mean? And that's how I live my life. I'd do anything for anyone else, but sometimes you sort of, you neglect the one person, which is yourself. And over the years, I've had to realise that, because it's formed and destroyed relationships I've had, and it's been tough. But I have sought help, and I sort of understand it now. You know, I've had that near-death experience, which was pretty incredible. I basically had a complete blockage of the left arterial artery. I was commentating a heat, and basically all hell broke loose. I should have been dead, but luckily I got in and had surgery quick enough to save my life. And that definitely changed a lot of things in my life. And that was in 2018. But, you know, going back to the depression stuff, I just feel like if you can't, you need to have a group of people you can go to and go, look, I'm struggling. There's no shame in struggling, because a lot of people's depression are brought on by things that they have no control over.
Well, the essence, you know, what you talked about earlier, which, you know, you've got a really good voice in life. You know, you commentate, you write, you know, run the Hennessey files, you're doubling down on stuff. So one of the interesting things that people, you know, do forget is to put their hand up and say, hey, man, I'm kind of struggling here. Can someone, you know, maybe just look into my heart and head, you know, because I'm absolutely tweaked. And I need that support, and I need the friend, and I need the family. And, you know, I guess they get self-conscious, you know, and social media these days obviously has been this huge pinnacle issue of, you know, people trying to be
something they're not.
Yeah, man. You know,
like, I can't stand that. Like, to be honest, I'm pretty lucky, Matt, that I've got about 3 or 4 people who get me through all the weirdness, because I am a tad strange at times. But I've got about 3 or 4 people, Dayyan, Kai, Suzanne, and was Randall. They can see through the crap, and they know when I'm not travelling too good. So I'm lucky in that sense that those guys can really help me through it. But the other side of it too, mate, you actually got to want to be helped at times. And sometimes I've put myself in a position where I didn't want to be helped, and I refused to be helped. And you get lucky, and you basically say, okay, it can either go one way or the other.
Mate, have you ever seen those, you know, sort of transformations of bums? You know, they're on the street and they're literally, you know, people would say they're down for the count, they're washed up, and then next thing you know, they give this person the haircut. They don them in some clothes, and people are going, same person? Are you kidding me? Oh, that guy looks unbelievable. That self-care is so important, isn't it?
100%. You got to look after your friends. You got to look after everyone in life. Like, for me, my biggest thing in my life is I'm loyal to everyone that shows me any kind of respect. If you don't, I'm not there. But I'll give 110% to anyone who needs help and shows me the kindness and same respect that I show them. So that's how I live my life. And, like, honestly, people go, geez, you know, you should be proud of what you've done over the course of your life. And I say, no, I'm blessed and I'm honoured that people have allowed me into their lives more than the other way around.
That is, you know, the king of kindness is respect, because, you know, when you are actually getting respect and you're connecting with community like you've done, and next thing you know, people are looking at you as a linchpin and pillar of society. You start to, I used to see a man pace up and down Manly beachfront, maybe doing 5,000 things in 3 seconds. But, you know, these days, you know, since you had that near death, and since you realise, you know, obviously the loss of your mother, you know, the loss of Danny, you know, that's 3 people that are near and dear to you that are in your heart, not in your eyesight. You know, they're in your subconscious being, and they're in your thoughts, but, you know, they don't have that tactile response to your life, and you can only go back on what was. But, you know, you've been an incredible person to a lot. The Adam Hennessey brand, you know, the AH promotions, it may not have the contest up and running anymore, but it's got a huge legacy ahead. Mate, are we going to hear a bit of music from you guys today?
Yeah, we are. Nigel's going to come in and play on his own on one of the Unleaded tracks, which I love, called Meant to Be. It's a real sort of, you know, it's a real passionate and emotional track. I do love that track. It's probably my favourite Unleaded track, and probably their most famous song we're going to do as well as a band. We're going to do Rubber Man, and we'll throw in a cover to round it out. But yeah, like I always say, if you want to play music, just don't worry about what anyone else thinks. It's a journey, and I say to everyone, get out there and grab an instrument, whether it be a guitar, drum, or whatever, and just play, because music, you know, it puts smiles on people's dolls.
Well, Adam, I'll tell you, you're finding the rhythm and the beat within, you know, life, you know, doing the way you're running your own life, and essentially that rhythm and beat that you need in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're struggling, if you need help, find that rhythm and beat of your friends, put the chords out there to the community and say, hey, mum, dad, brother, sister, uncle, auntie, you know, and go see the professionals, because it is the greatest ticket you'll ever have to the best theme park, and it's called life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Adam Hennessey. We're going to cut to a little bit of Greenroom. I think the boys are actually getting ready backstage. And Nigel, can you hear me there, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Mate, I'm absolutely enjoying talking to Adam Hennessey. He's the Dimmy is doing his thing. Mate, what's been happening with you?
Oh, what have I been doing? Just a little bit of music here and there. Working hard, putting food on the table for the kids, and yeah, just general life stuff.
Mate, that is awesome. Now, you're obviously here to bang us out a track.
Yeah, I am.
Would you mind if you intro what track you're actually going to be playing?
This song is called Meant to Be. It's an old song from a band that I was in when I first met you, actually, 20-something years ago.
We both... I didn't really have hair, you did.
Yeah, we kind of were both hanging in there. But it's called Meant to Be. So yeah.
Did you play it on that tour when I toured managed you guys?
Yeah, we never. Yeah, we had. It was around at that time, but we sort of never really played it live because it was a bit of a quieter song. So we were kind of all about playing the heavier stuff. But it's always been a nice song. Our bass player actually wrote it. But yeah, it's a great song. So I thought we'll do that.
You can't beat Izzy Macalister. Is it his track? Is it?
Izzy wrote this one on the balcony in DY.
Mate, I thought you were going to say Mount Maunganui, bro.
Oh no, not back then. This was over in Aussie when we came over.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the booth we have our good friend Nigel Spence. Nige, take it away, mate.
I guess this is the end, my friend. I'm walking out on you again. Too many times before did I open your locked door. I drink the red wine, 'cause it makes me feel just fine. When I dream with you, I can dream till daylight, because I know when I go there, I'll come back to you when you see the sun shining. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. And when I'm thinking of the past, I hang my head in deep regret. Too many times before did I crumble on your floor, and I guess it's telling me we were meant to, because I know when I go there, I'll come back to you when you see the sun shining. It was meant to be. 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 And when I'm thinking of the past, I hang my head in deep regret. Too many times before did I crumble on your floor. And I guess it's telling me, it's telling me we were meant to be. It was meant to be. It was meant to we were meant to be. It was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Nige, that was absolutely epic, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Mate, what's been going on?
Mate, just, well, I started an electrical business 10 years ago, so we're just based on the beaches. Running around, just working construction and, yeah, new homes and all that sort of thing.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Acoustic guitar, electrical business. We can certainly...
full-time electrician, part-time musician.
Mate, I love that. The essence behind you playing music, I absolutely loving it, you know. But playing it with ads, have you enjoyed playing?
Yeah. I mean, I think I met Adam around the same time I met you, and, yeah, we've just struck up a friendship since then through music and hanging out through the years. We don't see each other too often, but when we do, it's always good. And, you know, we play some music together and, yeah, go for a surf or something like that. But, yeah, he's a legend and, yeah.
Mate, when you become a father, as you know, time does run a little thin. You know, Adam obviously is father to 5,000 kids, board riders and whatever else.
Yeah, he does a lot.
Mate, you've actually got the band, so you've got the Greenroom band here tonight. Are you looking forward to playing?
Mate, yeah, looking forward to it. Always looking forward to getting together with the boys and bashing out some tunes.
Must be good to be able to, you know, have this little four-piece.
Mate, it's good fun. I mean, this band has been on and off for, 20-something years, and we always get together and, have a bash out every so often. It's always good just to reconnect and, you know, just hang out with your mates that you've known for ages and played music with.
Mate, could you imagine if a light switch lasts 20 years? It would be probably, or a light bulb.
Oh, yeah. Well, they do now, LEDs.
Mate, that's awesome. Nigel Spence, it's absolutely epic to catch up with you. Mate,
Nice
how
one,
about you peel out and see the boys?
Thanks, mate. Cheers for that, bud.
Here comes the Greenroom, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of Rubber Man, the original Unleaded song, and Rocking in the Free World. That was Izzy Macalister's original. So, boys, ladies and gentlemen, are we ready to rock and roll, to send out the BK for the night?
Yeah, Matty, yeah, we're ready to make a record. We got, obviously, met Dimmy, who's on the show before. Got Craig over there on the kit, better known as Mondo, and DC rocking it out over there, busting it out.
This rubber man that I knew once. He was a happy man. He laughed a lot. One day this rubber man got hit by a rubber band. It blinded him. He was a sad man, sad man. One is fair and It's a shame if that's the way it is. There was this rubber man that I knew once. He was a straight man. He never drank or cursed. One day this rubber man, last love at the hand of someone, became a furious man, became a drunk man, madman. What is fair and what is wrong? And to this day, he had to change his song. It's a shame if that's the way it is. What is fair and what is wrong? And to this day, he had to change his song. Freak of nature that no one can control. It's a shame if that's the way it is. The way it is. The way it is. The way it is.
That was Rubber Man, so we're gonna bust out a Neil Young song, "Rocket in the Free World." Colors on the stream, red, white, and blue. Are people shuffling their feet? Are people sleeping in their shoes? Yeah. Well, there's a war inside on the road ahead. There's a lot of people saying we'll be better out there. Don't feel like singing, but I am today. So I try to forget it any way I can. Yeah. Keep on rocking in the freeway. 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 I see a woman in the night with a baby in her hair under an old street light next to a garbage can. Well, she put her kid away, she's gonna get it. She hates her life, and when she's done with it, that's one more kid who never go to school, never fall in love, never get to be cool, yeah. Keep on rocking in the freeway.
got xylophone carbon for the ozone layer. Xylophone carbon for the ozone layer. I'm a man of the people, people who lie. Fuel to burn, gotta roll with the tide. Keep on rocking in the freeway. Keep on rocking in the freeway. Keep on rocking in the freeway. Keep on rocking in the freeway.
The BK was proudly brought to you by brand Konnects, made possible by the support of Paulie B, Future Signage and others. Many thanks to our special guest and you, our loyal followers. Catch you next time on the BK.